Shalom Chavrim, and welcome to the Noon Institute of Biblical Research and Middle Studies. Tonight, I keep finding myself getting sidetracked on where I feel like that we may end up going, and I recently got a video from a good friend of mine, Chris Ray, up in Canada, and he was talking a little bit about the Temple Institute and the things that they are doing. I actually have their website up on my screen right now, and they are making mock runs for the third temple, for the actual services that will be held there. The priests are doing these runs, and I find it very interesting. In fact, doing a little research before coming on tonight, I wanted to take a look at just to see what might be some of the things that are being said, and found an interesting video with Rabbi Chaim Richman, and he was answering a lot of the questions that Obama had been stating, and it gave me a new respect for Rabbi Chaim Richman there, and his stand for Israel, and of course anyone that is passionate about bringing the third temple, such as Rabbi Chaim Richman, as well as my good friend Gershon Solomon, and Gershon is with the Temple Mount and Faithful Land of Israel movement. He's the president of that. I don't know though, as far as, is there a link between the two groups? Have they ever come together? Not really sure on that ground there, but I do know that they both have the same goal in mind, and that is to see the third temple rebuilt. And with so much move towards seeing the third temple be constructed, I have wondered what is stirring all of this. I posted a video on YouTube a couple of years ago, back in 2011, around September there. Actually, is when they were talking about a Palestinian state. And I titled the video, if I remember right, Benjamin Netanyahu will take control of the Temple Mount. And I was actually thinking that he would do it by the end of the year. And many things have happened since then. It did not happen, and but yet, at the same token, I know we're in that season. It looked like it would because of the push for the Palestinian state. And I want to just share with you some scriptures on this, though. Before we get too far into this, I'd like to take you to the book in the Christian Bible, the book of Revelation, in chapter 11 and verse 1 there. And just want to share with you something here that's very interesting. And this is what the Lord dealt with me on back just before September, when I released this video. And at first I thought perhaps no one else had actually seen this, but I did find a couple other videos on the internet where a couple of other people that God had revealed the same to them as well. I think there was only 3 of us at the time. But when you read in Revelation, it says, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. That's 3.5 years. If you go by the ancient Jewish calendar that was a 360-day year calendar, it was based on 30 days in a month, according to the lunar cycle there, and not a sun cycle, not the 365-day year of the Gregorian calendar. And this is what was really important to me. I want to read it a little bit further, though, before I kind of start going into this here with you. He says, verse 3, "And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth." Again, we have another case. Anyone that knows anything about biblical prophecy, the 2 witnesses are the ones that come right here at the move of tribulation, as many people consider the 7 years of Daniel's the last week of Daniel's 70th week that we read in the book of Daniel. Let me point out to you, though, a couple of very serious scriptures in this here, a couple of little parts of this here. One, we see it's obvious that right at the advent of the coming of the 2 witnesses, we're going to have a temple built, because God tells John to take a reed like unto a rod and measure. And then he says something interesting, though. He says, let me just find that little part of it there. Measure the temple and the altar and that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Now, I think I mentioned this just the other night on the telecast there, but that is so profound when he says, for they shall tread, leave out the outer court, for it's given to the Gentiles, they will tread the holy city underfoot 42 months. Now, I made the comment that the city of the ancient city of David, or what they find on the outside of the walls, the current walls that were built by the Turks, there's a lot of remnant that has been dug up called the city of David. It goes outside the gate there on the eastern side, the southern, not the eastern gate, but the east south side of the temple there. And it's interesting, though, because what I have found interesting, this is also when you go out this gate here, this is where you come out and you'll actually go to where King David's tomb is, in that area there. This is where the Last Supper, the traditional site for the Last Supper, is at. And those of you that may not be aware of this, this is also where the Pope was given a seat at the Last Supper, at that place there, actually putting the property in the Vatican's hand, and then Shimon Peres pushing to call this spot the Vatican seat, the Pope's seat. Such a blasphemous move to begin with, to do something like this. But then you go on down into on the edge of the Kidron Valley right there, as you go out that gate, is the city of David. And you can go into Hezekiah's tunnel. You can do a little tour that brings you out to the Pool of Siloam. Those of you that may have ever visited Israel, you would know what I'm talking about. But what's interesting then, this is where the city of David actually once was, the holy city, in other words. And the Palestinians are pushing to get East Jerusalem as their capital. Which literally, if you're in the Jewish quarter, you will find that the old city wall runs right through the edge of the Jewish quarter of today. They have a little bit of that right near the bathroom area there in the Jewish quarter. You'll see the wall kind of comes up out of the ground there, and they've kind of pulled that up. Very interesting little tidbit there for you to think about. But he says that they're going to trod down this holy city, the holy city, for 42 months. So it's kind of giving us an idea of how that two-state solution is going to come out. God's telling us right here, one, it's going to be given to the Gentiles. Now, I want to bring to your attention something, though, real quick, over in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 11. And let me just see if I can find the particular verse on this right here. Daniel 11, and we'll put on there the prince. And with the arm of a flood. This is in verse 22. Let me back up to verse 21. Maybe actually verse 20 might be a good thing to do here. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom with by flatteries. Now, Shimon Peres has said about the Pope that he is the only man, Pope Francis is the only one that could restore peace in the Middle East. Interesting thought there for you. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. And the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. That's the verse I wanted to really bring to your attention. The small people are the Palestinians. They're the ones that are being the puppets right here for this Vatican agenda. And of course, if we will put in here some of the excerpts of Obama's speech for you. And I think you'll find it fascinating here what Obama is saying, because Obama takes and puts it out there that Jerusalem is really a city for all the religions. And I really like, though, what Rabbi Chaim Richmond says here about that, showing that the Torah was the first religion. It was the first one there. It is the mother of all the religions. But when you hear Obama talk about the way he speaks about the different religions, he basically puts, as he calls it, the Holy Quran above the Torah. He doesn't even say the Holy Torah. He just says the Torah. But he says the Holy Quran. He even says the Holy Bible. I guess he doesn't want to make the Christians mad in the United States. Don't want them to turn against him. I mean, it's unfortunately a lot of his support comes from them as well. So it's just absurd to see that. But what is really the point in all this? What I'm trying to get you guys to understand. This is how they're going to pull it over the eyes of the people. They're going to try to get you to believe that the millennium basically is set in. This is why they want a one-world religion. Sure, they're going to build a third temple. But with Rabbi Chaim Richmond, I wonder, are they going to build the temple along the guidelines, what they're kind of hoping for? Or even Gershon Solomon? Gershon Solomon wants to see the Dome of the Rock destroyed and the temple built on that ground. Now, I don't know whether or not Rabbi Chaim is willing to build the temple along the side of the Dome of the Rock or not. I don't really know his stand on that. Whether him or even Rabbi Ariel. Yisrael Ariel, I don't know what his stand is on that. I'd like to know that. But, we know that the Holy of Holies stood right there inside where the Dome of the Rock sits, to where the mountain comes up out of the ground, is where the Holy of Holies stood. Now, the reason why I hold that view and hold it strongly is from Gershon Solomon's own testimony. And he relayed this testimony to me. I know it. He was my neighbor, so I know him well enough to know these things. But when the Six-Day War had completed and they had taken control of the Temple Mount, he was standing there with a couple of his comrades, and a man presents himself as a tourist guide, and they take Gershon and his friends around, and the man is showing them different places, and even took them inside where the Dome of the Rock was. And when they looked at the mountain there, the man says, "This is where the Holy of Holies once stood." Well, finally, Gershon says to the man, he says, "We really appreciate all that you're sharing with us, but why are you telling us this?" And this man said to them, "I have been sent from the presence of Almighty God to tell you that the things that you are seeing now is to let you know that the God of Israel is once again dwelling amongst His people." And anybody probably could have said that, but the very next thing that Gershon told me is what blew me away. He said, "Then the man turned around, and as he turned around, he vanished before their sight." Imagine that. So, question is, when and how will the temple be built? And what will be the purpose? Now, we know that the Antichrist would like to defame it. Satan wants to have his little 3.5-year reign inside and be able to stand in that temple as well. So there is a danger in all this that we would have. Anyway, so let me take you a little further here, though. Something that I think that is very important that we understand besides Daniel here. You know what? Let me take you to real quick. Let's take a look, though, when we're talking about Daniel's 70th week here. The last week, this is what we're coming up on. And by the way, the whole point of speaking about Revelation chapter 11, just so you know, it's a time frame. Do you realize when they build that temple there, or when a Palestinian state is enacted, your 70th week of Daniel begins at that moment? I mean, church, it's time to wake up. I tell you the other night about Rebecca and her going through the birth pains, and there's 2 nations in her womb, and they'll be separated when they come out. How can we miss this? How can we miss all the signs that are on the wall? They're everywhere in front of us. We got to wake up, church. You got to wake up your family. You got to wake up your loved ones. You got to do something to get people saved. Daniel chapter 9. Let's look at this. Let me just kind of take you a little bit into this here. And this is the famous prophecy that we all know. 70 weeks, verse 24. Chapter 9, verse 24. Daniel. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Who's Daniel's people? It are the Jews. Not all the world. The Jewish people. And upon thy holy city. To finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Now, there are some groups that believe that when Yeshua came, it was fulfilled. We don't have time to get into that debate right there, but when Yeshua, when Jesus, when he came and he rode in on the donkey, that was his first advent as royalty. That happened to be, and he was cut off, because you have to remember the scripture says that Mashiach will be cut off in the midst of the week. Now we're going to read that in just a second. And then we end up with a week left over. So when it says here that the 70 weeks, in other words, when these 70 weeks are completed, it should bring in reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision. Excuse me, I don't want to forget the one that's very important. To finish the transgression, to make an end of sins. Israel has not recognized who her Messiah is. The only way as a people that God is going to pardon the iniquity that's going on in our life is to recognize who Mashiach is. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And of course, when Ezra and them went back and Nehemiah, they were given, the king had given the command that they could go back and rebuild the temple. It was definitely in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and to the end of the war desolations are determined. Now, it's verse 26 is very important. After 62 weeks, that's 69 weeks in case you don't understand that math there, shall Messiah be cut off. There are some people, though, that they look at the last week and they say, well, Jesus was cut off in the middle of the week, of the last week. But if that be the case, we have a problem here, because it says, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. In other words, after 69 weeks, the Messiah is cut off. When you look at the time frame biblically, from the time that Nehemiah's decree goes forth, Artaxerxes gives a decree for Nehemiah. They're allowed to go and rebuild the temple from that time there until Messiah rises in on Palm Sunday. You have exactly, according to 360 days in a year of a Jewish calendar, we have exactly 69 weeks. Or, what is that, 400 and, I forget the actual math on the years there, but I think it's like 400, 80 years or something like that. I may have that wrong. Forgive me if I do. I didn't prepare for that particular thought there. But anyway, so what do we have? We have a week left then. And so therefore, and he was cut off. But he wasn't cut off 3.5 years later. See, what we have here is when we look at Revelation, it says that there's 42 months, 3.5 years. They build this temple, they make this negotiation. Now watch what we have here in Daniel. What does he say on down? And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, but the people. Okay, the prince, and notice this, and the people of the prince that shall come see, the prince that shall come, that's a future event. He tells you about a prince that's going to come, and that prince is not going to show up for nearly, 2,700 years after Daniel's prophecy. 2,000 years after the Messiah comes. But he identifies who he's from. He says he's of, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. What people? The Romans. The Romans destroyed the temple and the sanctuary. But they are of the prince that shall come. In other words, Rome, Vatican, If you ever read the book Israel, Are They Still God's People? That's a book I did. I break that down in there for you to really make sense of this for you. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and to the end of and unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. Wow. And we are definitely look like we're fixing to go into nothing but wars over there in the Middle East here. So it's wars and desolations are determined. I mean, this is going to be nothing but the last week is going to be wars and desolations. Very interesting. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Who? The princes shall come. In the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. That looks like Israel will be back in her sacrificial service, and that Antichrist spirit, or maybe it's false prophet. I mean, I know there's different opinions out there. There's some people that they got all kinds of ideas. I won't go into all that. But the princes shall come is going to be the one that's going to stop the sacrifices. The covenant is broken, he stops the sacrifice, and the oblation is to cease. And the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation and determined shall be poured out upon the desolate. Now, in other words, Israel's going to really go through a turmoil. We're fixing to go through a turmoil with the Gog and Magog war coming up. Friends, the hour that we're living in is tremendous. Now, I feel like one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about as well, though, and this is for my Jewish brethren. I'd like you to go into Ezra chapter 9. When God sent Ezra down to begin to get the temple ready and everything, Ezra was so happy that they were restoring the temple. And it's really what happens with Ezra is something that is repeating in history right now and today. And I want you to see this. I want you to understand this right here. Verse 1. Now these things were done. Now let me just kind of give you a little overview here, though. Ezra comes in, and he's putting everything in order. And he's bringing out the sons. He's just like what we see right now going on. In fact, it kind of really brings something interesting to me. Let's look at chapter 8, verse 1. These are now the chief of the fathers of this, is the genealogy of them that went up with me from Babylon in the reign of Artaxerxes the king. He goes into their different names there. He's gathering back the people, getting everything ready. And another interesting point here is we find something that Artaxerxes does here, very interesting. He takes up an offering and is sending it down to help build, a willing offering to help build the house of God. I think you're going to see the Vatican play a role in this, in helping the temple get built. They may leave the Jewish people alone. They may leave the Temple Institute or whoever is going to be over the building of the third temple. They may leave them alone as far as letting them get the temple built. But this is what this peace negotiation is all about as well. It's the only reason why Israel, I believe, is going to go along with this peace treaty that they're trying to make with Israel, that Ms. Levini from Israel with the Palestinian Authority there and their negotiation members there. This is going to be the only thing that will really get the Jews to go along with this two-state solution, is they're going to allow the third temple to be built on the Temple Mount. Now, I could be wrong in this. We may see a war take place over there any day now, and they may end up destroying the Dome of the Rock. So, friends, I may be totally off on that. And if they do that, then well, amen, so be it. You know, I'm not against that at all either. In fact, it's just that much more, praise God, if that's the case. But just so you know, it could be either way. It looks like to me they're going to build the third temple alongside the Dome of the Rock. There's been a lot of push, a lot of false archaeological thoughts to try to produce that, to build it in a place that it does not belong. But we'll just have to see how that pans out. Anyway, though, the point I want to make, though, with Ezra, even Artaxerxes, what does it say? Even ours, the king, made a decree of all the treasures which are beyond the river, that whatsoever Ezra, the priest of the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, shall require of you, it be done speedily, unto 100 talents of silver, and unto 100 measures of wheat, to the 100 baths of wine. Just everything that he has need of, Artaxerxes is making sure that he has. And so on and so forth. You know, it's an amazing thing that begins to happen in order to bring forth the temple here. Now, but what really though struck me though is when we get into chapter 9, and he says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me. Now this is the princes coming to Ezra, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. Plural. That may not seem significant to you, but I want you to understand why it is significant. The lands are the Gentiles, the nations. They haven't separated from them. Doing according to their abominations, even to the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Jebusites and the Ammonites and the Moabites and the Egyptians and the Amorites. For they have taken of their daughters for themselves, for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. The hand of the princes and rulers have been chief in this trespass. Yes, they have. History is repeating itself. Israel is at the advent of building the third temple. But in this case here, then it was they married their daughters. I mean, notice who's the most guilty. Yea, in the hand of the princes and the rulers have been chief in this trespass. The politicians. What are you doing? Shimon Peres, Miss Lavini, the princes, the rulers. You're marrying in with the world. You marry in with the United States. You marry in with the Obama two-state solution. What is it really? A final solution? Do you think it's going to go well with the Jews in the United States or anywhere else in the world? When they're trying to pass even Sharia law in the United States? I mean, come on, wake up! You know, people need to wake up what's going on. My brothers in Israel, you need to wake up. Just like politics. And Shimon Peres, guilty of all. No wonder why the scripture says they went down into Babylon, over in Isaiah 66, I believe is where it was we read the other night. Went down into Babylon. Sure you did. God's got to redeem us from them. Break the yoke off of Israel's neck. No wonder why he sends the two witnesses. You know, that's interesting. You ever notice, you wonder why God says two witnesses? Because it's not going to be two Baptists, Methodists, Pentecostals, Presbyterians, Lutherans, etc. It ain't going to be none of them. God has to get two men who can take the word and stay on that word. And not bow down to any of this nonsense. Won't go into the, oh, well, I got myself a retirement village out of this. The Vatican's going to give me a nice parcel over in Italy if I can work this thing out and get the people to go along with it. God bless you, Rabbi Chaim. I thank God for that stance that you did against that nonsense politicians Barack Obama and that nonsense in his stand against Israel the way he does, trying to make Israel, will Israel become a place for all nations? Absolutely yes. When? In the millennium. God's got to first clean off the sin and get all the nonsense out of here. Get rid of all this politician garbage. Then God can do something. Let me tell you something. You ever notice when Elijah goes to get Elisha? This would be something for you to think about. When he goes to get Elisha, what does he do? Where does he find him? He finds him plowing behind 12 yoke of oxen. That's a type. Elisha is a type of the spirit of Elijah that will come in this day to Israel. And when he comes, he'll find Israel still yoked up under the bondage of the law. But what does Elisha do? He takes and he breaks the yoke off the oxen. And the sacrifice is made. Could it be that the first sacrifice that is made in Israel will be right after the yoke is broken? It's interesting. Something to think about. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this broadcast. If you would like to be a part of this ministry, you can send your tax-free gift to the Noon Institute at 12537 Gemstone Crescent, Fort Myers, Florida 33913, or you can give securely online at www.israelreturns.com. For more resources, visit our website again at www.israelreturns.com. Also, please visit our YouTube channel, Ben Danoon. We would like to thank some of our valued friends for making this broadcast possible. Thank you for being with us. We trust that tonight's program has been a blessing.